kept from people. I just naturally gravitated toward the dark side of the world I live in, even as a kid, even as a child. I suspected there were all kinds of lies and tricks being pulled on adults, and adults were pulling it on each other and children. And so I've always been interested in things that other people don't even know exist. And in the last 30 years, 35 years actually, I've taken my work publicly. Before I started back in 1959, looking at all of these strange phenomena of the world I live in, governments and religion and commerce and all that kind of thing, and where did these things actually come from, and who started them, and who says that this is true and something isn't. And so I developed over a period of years, and I don't know why. I just did. I just began to develop a pattern recognition. And I didn't try to do it. It just came easy for me. I just began to see patterns in the way people act and patterns in the way people talk. And then I began to see patterns in commerce and government. And this was quite a few years ago. And so for the last 35 to 40 years, I've been professionally talking about pattern recognition and how the world is operating behind the scenes. And there's nothing, the world, I've said this so many times, I'll say it again, because the world has nothing to do with what you think it does. It doesn't operate the way you think it does. Nothing is what you think or what you've been told it is. The whole world is quite different than anything you have ever heard. And so that's why, as chaotic and crazy as the world may seem, it continues to operate every day, business as usual, no matter how much chaos and craziness goes on. Is because there is a secret world of operation behind the scenes, and so that's what I've always been interested in: the real story, the hidden story behind the world scene, behind what government, religion, commerce. The entire world is not what you think it is, and I've been looking at this idea and this subject for many, many years.
I think
So,
I started out quite similar, observing patterns and codes and connecting the dots. I would assume that many of us have started out in the same way, and you start to realize these patterns, you start to realize these codes, and you start to connect the dots, and you see that things are not as they seem. I,
that's right, boy.
I mean, I recall when I first started in radio about 6.5 years ago, about 6 months prior to starting in radio, so about 7 years ago, is when I first got interested in all of this. And you were one of the people that helped me to realize what was going on. And it's just amazing how 7 years later I'm actually able to talk to you. But the point is the connecting of the dots, the sets of patterns and codes we can recognize and we realize. That's what really separates us from the people that are proverbially asleep. People don't connect the dots. They see situations and events and people and places as isolated. And it's only when you connect and see that there's a relationship between them that the world
Yeah,
is much different.
yeah, yeah. As a matter of fact, when you're connecting the dots, lawyers will tell you, read the fine print and then sign the dotted line. The dotted line, the fine print. Well, yeah, if you take your ordinary check, if you have a checkbook, pull out your checkbook and look at your checks that you get from the bank, and at the bottom is where you sign your check. Well, that's a dotted line. If you look at it, it's a dotted line. So that's why they ask you to sign on the dotted line. But read the fine print. What do you mean, read the fine print? The dotted line is fine print. Get a magnifying glass and look at the place that you sign on your check, the dotted line, and you'll find it's not dots. It merely looks like dots because it's so tiny, but get a magnifying glass and you will see it's saying something. Those are letters. There are words, and you are signing over those words. You think it's a dotted line. No, it's actually telling you something, and you're signing on the dotted line, but you didn't read the fine print.
Is that on all checks, legal
All
documents?
checks, all checks. When you sign a check, you're signing a dotted line. Well, go get a magnifying glass and read what that line is saying, and then you will find out, how you're getting into trouble with banks and money and all that kind of thing because of what it says that you are signing on
Well,
to. So
banks,
it's just interesting the way the world works.
banks were one of the first subjects that I got into, trying to understand finance, trying to understand the way in which loans worked and the Federal Reserve, and a lot of people got caught up in the Fed, in the Fed, in the Fed, and they lost a lot of the substance that was involved in that movement, I think, after a certain period of time. And
Yeah,
when it comes to banks, Jordan, I think you probably know more than most. Banks are probably one of the most corrupt and controlling institutions going back to the most ancient of days, prior to
that's
the
exactly
Templars.
right, boy. It's frightening. It is absolutely frightening, and that's why I personally refuse to ever walk into a bank. I cannot bring myself to walk into a bank because it's like walking into a prison. It's the Gestapo, the SS, it's the epitome of tyranny, banks, and I know why. I mean, I understand it well. I've been looking at it for too many years. So
It was bizarre to me during the Democratic National Convention. I don't watch any of this nonsense, this circus, but I heard that there were a couple of speeches at the DNC about how we should get rid of the banks or regulate the banks, and these speakers are speaking about ending banks in an arena called Wells Fargo. And it's that's just amazing to me, and people don't understand. These, let's say a bank sponsors an arena in this capacity. They sign a multi-million-dollar contract to stick the name of the
yeah,
bank up on the up. Where does the bank get the money for that? Where does the bank get the money to send you these letters in the mail that says sign up today, we'll give you a free $500? They're
yeah,
supposed to be taking and keeping your money. They're not making money, are they?
yeah. Well, first of all, where do you find a bank? A bank is on the both sides of a river. They're called river banks. What does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the currency because your money is called currency because it's a current, like the ebb and flow of the ocean. So that's why banks are on the both sides of a river, and the river directs the flow of the currency. And so, we have words like the money goes through your hands like water. Actually, in point of fact, no, money is considered, but under international law, money is considered law. Under international law, money is considered water. So when we say money goes through your hands like water, no, that's true. Money is water. It's the cash flow, the liquid asset. You have liquidity, liquid. It goes through your hands like water. And so when you understand what money is and what the words that are connected to banking, and like I said, a bank, and you go back to where did the word bank come from? It goes back to the ancient Middle East uh, when, what's the word? I got so many things I want to talk about tonight, but the word banking goes back to the word bench because in the ancient Middle East, as today, even in Cairo when I was there, um, people will sit on the streets with their goods that they're selling, and they will sit on these big pillows, and they will sell their things that they're selling off of a bench. And so when you stoop down to buy something, you put your money on the bench, and then they trade the money or give you your change or whatever. And so a bench in Latin is bank. And so you look at the word bank and look at a Latin dictionary, and it will say a bench. Why? Because the ancient Romans realized that you do business in the Middle East on a bench. And this is why in the courts, The courts are can hand out a bench warrant for you. If you don't show up in court, they give you a bench warrant, which means it's the bank wants you. You were going to pay a big fine, but you didn't show up. The court don't care. The bank cares because you were going to pay hundreds of dollars in a fine, but you didn't show up. So the bank wants you, not the court. So that's why they issue a bench warrant. Bench is bank in Latin. So, the bench, the whole court system is set up for the bank. That's what happens. That's why you have people in the court system called attorneys. Goes back to a French word, attorne. An attorne was, in French, a legal term for someone who takes your property and turns it over to somebody else, and usually turns it over to the government. But so that's why we have attorneys, because they're turning over your wealth and taking your money and giving it to somebody else, usually the government. So it's interesting the way it's interesting the way government works and all of that kind of thing. It's all banking. It's all interesting words and terms. So it's a hell of a story, and it's a big one. We could talk for 8 hours and not even scrape the surface of this thing.
Yes, we could. Before we get any deeper into the conversation, Jordan, Jack is my co-host this evening. Jack, I wanted to bring you in so you don't get lost in the fold.
Yes.
Hi, Jordan.
Hi there, Jack. Talked with you before.
Yes, I just want to thank you for everything that you've done for humanity by taking the risks that you have and disseminating this information that's so important.
Well, thank you, and it's true. I have paid a hell of a price for talking about these things. Believe me, I've lost everything because of it, and I'm still at loss for all of it because there's just some very powerful people in the world that don't want this kind of information getting out. And I have put myself on the line and lost because of it, but that's who I am now, and I'm too old to change, so I just do what I do. And I figured if somebody's supposed to hear me, they will, and if they're not supposed to, they won't, so I don't care. Just do the best I can.
One of the things I found interesting when you were explaining about how you can disseminate certain information publicly, but you have to be very careful of what you say publicly and how much other additional information that you do have to offer. And you might want to just explain to folks your research society and that website, because I think people might really be interested in digging into some of the information on that website.
Well, yeah, let me start by saying I was told quite a while back by some lawyer friends of mine that I have quite a few lawyer friends, and they're always giving me bits and pieces of information. But I come to understand that government is empowered to protect the people. That's the idea, is the government is there to protect the people, to protect the country. And so the idea being in law is that there is two facets of communication. There's public and private. So if you are in a private situation, like in a church, I don't care if you're a Klansman or what kind of group you're with, as long as you're in your own group, your own meeting place, or your own church, or whatever, you can say whatever you want about anybody and use any kind of language you please, as long as the people in the church don't mind. But you can say anything you want about anybody. That's private. It's in a private meeting place, and so you are protected. Your free speech is protected. But if you go out into the public now, onto radio and television, and now say the same things you were saying in your Ku Klux Klan meeting in the public, now they can come after you. Now the government can come after you because now you're attacking and you're saying things in public. And so I was told that the kind of information I deal with, you might want to think about going private with your knowledge, because you're going to get ultimately into a lot of trouble talking about things that you're not supposed to know and you're not supposed to talk about. And so I, for many years, have just been putting out the best I can without harming myself, without getting myself in trouble. I put out, information that I feel safe that I can do and not get thrown in jail. But here now, with the new arrangement we have in the American government, where if you say anything that makes any sense to anybody, you might go to jail because of it. In America, you can go to prison now if you know something and you're trying to help your fellow man. If you've discovered a way to end a disease and you want to help your fellow man, you will end up in prison. If you found out something that's going on, some kind of criminality that's going on, that's ripping off the public, and you talk about it and try and help the public, you will go to prison. That's the way America works today. If you know something of real value, you can go to prison, or worse. So if you happen by chance to know something that happened and you were there and you saw a murder happen and you were there on the spot and saw something, well, of course, in this country you have a freedom of speech. And so I say, yeah, go on out and talk about it. Talk about what you saw last night and who did it and who shot it, who. Talk about it. And watch how fast you're going to find yourself dead. You're going to find yourself assassinated or something because, you know something you're not supposed to know. And so it becomes very dangerous in America to know anything of any real value. You can sit and talk about, who you want to vote for president. You can talk all about what's going on as long as you don't know anything. As long as you don't understand and know what's going on and you have no understanding of the world, the way it works, you can talk all you want and you have freedom of speech. But if you know something you're not supposed to know, they may find you dead somewhere and where you committed suicide by shooting yourself in the back of the head 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that it's very, very dangerous in America today to talk to people about anything of any real value. It's too bad, but that's the way it is.
And I think it's just for people in general. People suffer from I think an overall form of Stockholm syndrome in a way. They identify with their captors. They identify with these belief systems and their faiths. And so when you contradict or ask a question that contradicts their belief and their faith, they attack you because they choose to defend it. And sometimes it's not even consciously. It's a subconscious reflex reaction.
That's exactly right. It's a reflex reaction. And it's called cognitive dissonance. The word is 2 words, cognitive dissonance, meaning when you hear something that you have never been told before and goes totally against everything you've ever believed, obviously the person telling you that is crazy. He must be out of his mind because you know better. And he's telling you something that's absolutely opposite of what you've always known and understood. And therefore he must be crazy. He's a lunatic, and you can report him to the authorities because he's telling you something that's obviously wrong. And it's called cognitive dissonance until one day, if you get smart enough, you actually find out, no, he was right and you're wrong. And what you thought you knew was not true at all. And of course, he's gone to prison for trying to help you. And so the Bible's even talking about that. Be careful what you say to people because they'll turn around and use it on you and use it against you. So I've always understood that. I've seen it happen in my life way too many times. People will say, I said something, and then I got the cops on my door, and I got federal agents knocking on my door at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I've already been there and done that. I've already had the knocks on the door at 3 in the morning. I've already had the federal agents, talking to me and basically saying, you better watch your mouth. And so I have come to the conclusion this is no longer a free country. You don't have any freedom, to talk about anything free anymore. So I just understand all the dark secrets because I've been looking at it for 55 years, since 1959. And I've been looking at how the world really works, what banks really are, what the police department really is, what universities and colleges actually are, and where the words come from, where the terms come from. It's the catchphrases. My God, a world of lies and deception and trickery. But if you wanted to talk about money and commerce, that's always good. Look up the word commerce in a law dictionary. It will tell you sex. Sex is referred to in law as commerce. That's the law. I didn't say that. Look up in a law dictionary. Look up the word commerce, and it will tell you the sex act is called commerce. It's a business, and it may be a shady business, it may be a bad business, but it's a business. This is why if you get married, you got to have a license. Why? Because sex is a business. So you have to have a business license. You can't do business without a license. And so when you're getting married, now that's a whole story. When you get married, you are a corporation. That's why when you die, you're a corpse, because you are referred to on the law as a corporation. And consequently, the girl you're marrying, she's a corporation. So now you got General Motors doing business with Ford Motor Company. Two corporations doing business. And you can do that as long as as long as you pay your taxes and get a permit. Ford just can't go out and do business with a German company without letting the government know it. And the government lawyers know it, and everybody has to be in on it. The government's got to get, their 10% or 20%.
Well, Jordan, isn't that the quote unquote secret tax on everything? You have to have a license for a gun, a license for fishing, a license for hunting, a licenence for driving, a license for everything. So that's right. A license.
Exactly. We're regulated. We're not free. We're regulated.
That's right. Right. Like Dick Gregory said, you're not listening to the land of free and the home of the brave. You ain't free or brave. You need to shut up.
Well, don't you love? And I'm sure that you've seen this. Obviously, you've been doing this for so many decades, especially in America now, where you can be arrested. There are millions of dollars spent every year for SWAT teams and federal units to roll up to a family farm, destroy livestock, destroy the crops, destroy the farm for raw milk, raiding health food stores, raiding people's homes for light bulbs. It's beyond belief. It's beyond an understanding to the logical, realistic notion of what this country is supposed to be. It's absolutely backwards.
No, I know. And a word you used. If you if you have a 2-story building and you're going to put a lot of weight on the second floor, like printing presses and all kinds of heavy equipment on the second floor, if you've got any sense at all, you'll get a building inspector and go downstairs and go up on a ladder with the building inspector and remove the tiles from the ceiling on the first floor and look at the foundation of that second floor to see if it's going to hold that kind of heavy weight. So what you're doing is you're standing under the thing you're going to build on. You're standing under the foundation you're going to build on to see if it's going to hold that kind of weight. So you're standing under to get understanding. That's where the word to understand comes from. You have to go beneath the surface. Don't just buy what somebody tells you. You better go back and do your homework and find out how this government really works.
And that's why in court, you should, when they ask you, do you understand the charges, you should always say no.
Well, that's interesting because the way the law reads, from what I've gathered over the years, hearing lawyers talk about it, when a cop asks you or anybody at the police or the court, especially a cop on the street, they ask you, do you understand? I'm arresting you for this or that. Do you understand? If you say no, the law says that they can't do anything to you because you don't understand. You have to agree that yes, I know I did that. Yes, I'm guilty, and yes, I understand. But if you don't understand, the law says they can't do anything to you. So that's why they want you to say, I understand, because now they got you. Good. Well, now we can put you in jail.
And you're admitting to being under them.
That's right. You understand them.
So you acquiesce to the system. It's
So anyway, like I said, there's my first and only real love was theology, religion and theology. That's my first love. And from there, my second most high interest that I have in anything at my age, I'm almost 76 now. But there's only really two things in this world I'm really interested in, and that's theology and religion, and where religions have come from, what the real truth is about the religions of the world, where they have come from, what their words mean, and all of that. I've been looking at that all my life. And second, of course, is the UFO alien presence on the earth, of which there's no doubt in my mind that there's an alien presence here, and they are, whoever they are and wherever they have come from, they are the brains behind the human system that we live under. The human system of education, commerce, law, government, all the institutions that we live by have been given to us by a higher intelligence. We don't see it, and so therefore it doesn't bother us because we're so smart that we know everything there is to know about everything. And so if we don't see it, then it's not here. Well, you can bet your ass it is here. There is a profound presence of dark forces on this earth which are not of this world. I know I've seen them. I've already seen the ramifications of what is actually going on behind the scenes, where the religions of the world have come from, where the great philosophies have come from, and where all of the demonic depravity that's now gripping the earth is coming from. And so there is an extraterrestrial connection to all of this. And if you don't take that into consideration, you haven't gotten anything. You're just playing with the outside. You haven't been inside yet.
Well, Jordan, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, let's continue to get into theology, religion, and the UFO alien presence. How does that sound?
Yeah, well, and of course I have a lot of stuff to talk about on money and commerce too.
Sure.
You could go into that a little bit as far as what are the biggest knee-jerk symbols that you see pulling people's strings.
Well, my God, there's so many. Like you said, they're everywhere. I mean, but there's so many symbols that we see every day and take for granted and have no idea what they mean. I could give you 100 of them, but right off the top of my head, in Washington, D.C., you have the Washington Monument, which is an Egyptian obelisk. And most people, don't know that that's an Egyptian symbol, Egyptian obelisk. And what the obelisk represented was a male erection. And it connects to the female ovaries, or the Oval Office. And so every day, the president is sitting in the Oval Office with the female ovaries, looking at the male phallic, which is the Washington Monument. And that's why he controls the life of the nation. And so there's all kinds of sexual symbols, especially sexual symbols are everywhere. Religion in particular, all three of major religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, are crammed filled to the brim with sexual symbolism that you have never been told. You have no idea in the world about how pervasive sex is in all three major religions. And so, oh my God, well, that's a story for another time. But it's too bad that symbols are everywhere. And I've said so many times, if you go to China, you better learn to read the Chinese symbols, because if you're on a bicycle or a motorcycle or driving in China, you don't know how to read the symbols, you're going to get run over. Why? Because you don't know what you're doing. You can't read the symbols. And if you're in Los Angeles or New York or Chicago and you go into bad areas of the city and you see the spray painting on the wall, especially in Los Angeles, and you don't understand those are not just people tagging. They're not just guys and kids tagging to mess up the wall. No, they're telling you something. Certain colors and certain words mean something. If they catch you inside that area, wearing a different color, you can be killed. So people need to understand symbols are very important. You know, stop signs are symbols. You don't know what it means? Well, try running one. And so, it's amazing how much people don't realize how much we look at every day and don't know where these symbols have come from. And
Jordan, did you see in Washington, D.C., you mentioned the Washington Monument, this huge phallic symbol. On the winter solstice, December 21st, the tip of that Washington Monument, the shadow of it, penetrates the elliptical oval park in Washington, which is the female vagina, and impregnates for the sun to be reborn once more.
That's exactly right. And so it all has to do with sex. And oh my God, we could talk for hours on that subject of sex and religion. And classic example. I don't want to get off into it because there'll be another 5 hours just on that. But Moses goes up into the mountain and received the 10 Commandments. Well, we always have the pictures of the movie star with Charlton Heston playing Moses coming down from the mountain with the two big plates and the two big stone tablets. Well, in point of fact, if you go back to the biblical reference words, go get the big Bible dictionaries, encyclopedias, and do some research on the 10 Commandments. First of all, they weren't called the 10 Commandments. They were called the 12 negative confessions. Later on, the Jews gave us the 10 Commandments. No, originally the 12 negative confessions. And they came from Egypt. So the whole idea of the 10 Commandments was Egyptian.
They come from the Book of the Dead?
That's right, exactly. And so but anyway, Moses comes down from the mountain with the two stones. Well, in Hebrew, the two tablets of stone that we call the 10 Commandments were called the stone tablets, or the stone testimony, a testimony of the stones. And you look that up, and you become aware that the stones were the testes, the testicles. So they were called testy stones. They were stones of the testimony. Stones of the testimony are the two testicles. And this is why even in the ancient Hebrew, and probably still today in the Knesset, in Israel, when one Jew brings another Jew, his brother Jew, into court, in a Hebrew court, you were required to hold your testicles when you are testifying, because that's where the word test comes from. It's from testicle. So you're testifying against your brother Jew in a court of law, so you hold your testicles. That's why we say they got you when you go into court, by the testicle, because you're going to testify. And therefore Moses comes down from the mountain with the stones of the testimony. And the old ancient Jewish reference works show you that and tell you that Moses came down. It's a symbolic way of saying he came down with the stones of the testimony, which were the testicles. And and the Bible reference works, Christian Bible reference works, say that the stones that were brought down were two small round stones that you hold in your hand, that they were not big plates and stone plates. No, the Bible reference works, encyclopedias of the Bible will tell you, no, there were two round stones that you hold in your hand, hold in one hand. Well, what does that sound like? And so you begin to see, well, there's a lot of sexual stuff in religion, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and that's why you have all of this stuff going on with sex in all three religions.
Jordan, do you see it as benevolent, malevolent, or a combination of both?
I see it as ancient sex worship, period. That's all it's ever been. All three religions are based on sex worship. Christianity is worshiping with the sun, sex worship, and the sun and sex, while Judaism is worshiping. Judaism is an eclectic religion. It's made up of 2 or 3 different religions. That's a whole story. We could talk for hours just on Judaism. Where did it actually come from? What does it actually mean? What are the words, and where did it come from? When you find out there was no Moses, no Moses never lived, there was no Abraham. There was no Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's always a three, God is always, in all ancient religions, God was always a triune God. And in Hindu was Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. In Egypt it was Osiris, Isis, Horus. Christianity is Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. In Judaism is Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Always triunes, always a three. Why? There's a reason why. That's why there's a reason why there are three major religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Why three major religions? Because it always goes back to the triangle. It always goes back to the pyramid, the 3 points of the triangle, 3 points of the pyramid. Talking about symbols, if you go into any major public building, restaurants, hotels, anything public, the men's room will always have a triangle on it, and the women's room will always have a circle on it. And people going in and out of the bathrooms every day, never realizing the men push the door open and it's got a triangle on it, and women going into the restroom with a circle on it, never realizing that's the same symbol that's on the back of your dollar bill. Think about it. On the back of your dollar bill is a triangle, and there's a circle around it. And then you find out that the circle is connected to Stonehenge. It's the sacred circle, the Stonehenge. And Stonehenge is connected directly to, if you draw a straight line, a laser line, from the heel stone in Stonehenge out the front door of Stonehenge and draw a straight line around the earth, it hits the pyramid of Giza. And that's why there's a pyramid on the back of a dollar bill, because it's connected to Stonehenge. Stonehenge is the magic circle, and the pyramid is the triangle on the men's door, on the men's restroom. Why a pyramid on the men's restroom? Because the very word pyramid, P-Y-R-A, pyra is fire, mid is middle. Pyramid means fire in the middle. That's what the word means, fire in the middle. Well, that's where the fire of sex is in the middle of the male and female. It's in the middle. So it's a pyramid, the fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Remember, fire is connected to sex, and fire is connected to the pyramid. And that's why it's a phallic symbol, a male phallic symbol. That's why it's on the doors of men's restrooms. Women are connected to the sacred circle. My God, I mean, we could go on for hours.
Yeah.
It also ties into the third chakra too, doesn't it?
That's
George?
right. That's right. There are three is very important in all the esoteric, symbols and religions of the world. But anyway, so when we get to, I was going to talk a little bit about commerce, because, like I said, you look up the word commerce in the dictionary, especially in a law dictionary, it would tell you commerce is sex. And this is why you have to have, you have to understand where these words come from. And let me just go through some of this very quickly, because a lot of people never thought about this. We say things like money goes through your hands like water. Well, then we talk about money being liquidity, liquid assets, or you are awash in debt. Think about all the words that we use in relation to water. And so if you go to court, you're in hot water, and somebody's going to have to bail you out. Because you're in hot water, they're going to bail you out. Why? Because you're flooded with bailout money, or your bank account has dried up. You have an offshore account because you're drowning in debt. But we were running a tight ship, and we don't want you to make any waves or rock the boat. And so the whole idea is on you on board the citizenship, and so you're laundering dirty money in the mainstream. You have shipping departments. The bank will levy your account. And don't worry about it, because one day your ship will come in. And it's very interesting in commerce. The word mer, M-E-R, mer is a word for the sea, for the ocean, like mermaid. And so mer is the sea. And the sea has always been an enchanting, with the waves coming in and going out. We say it's just an enchanting sea. And so the enchanting, well, chanting is a form of music. That's why you have a bank note. And so you have a bank note, which is the chanting, and that's why you have a mer chant, because it's the sea and the chanting sea. So we have merchants. And if you're going to get enchanted, you're going to go into the store, you're going into the entrance, because you're entrancing. You have been entranced, so you go in the entrance. And so therefore we have scholarship, sportsmanship, courtship, hardship, airship. Incidentally, all ships are female. Rocket ships, sailing ships, it doesn't matter. Whatever kind of ship it is, it's female. Why? Because she is delivering a product. It's the male who in sex, it's the male who M-A-N, manufactures. But it's the female who's in labor producing the product. So she's delivering the product, but the man has manufactured. And so we're talking about the reproduction of human life. And it all has to do with water, because you're 70 to 80% water. So that's why we have an heirship and friendship and censorship and companionship and partnership, leadership, dictatorship. And so the whole idea, incidentally, anything that's really important to you, that you hold as very important and have a very heavy worth, it's called W-O-R-T-H, worth. And so if you have something that's really important to you, that's worth a lot, then you have something called worthship. And that's where we get the word worship. No, it's not W-O-R, it's W-O-R-T-H, worthship. And so, it's really an interesting, when you begin to break down the words and where all these terms have come from, and your money is water, and your house is underwater, and you're laundering money, and the bank is going to have levy your account, and all that kind of stuff. So it's really a strange world that we live in, and it works because, and the reason why all of this works so well is because nobody knows what I'm talking about. Nobody understands what we're saying, that it's all been put together far back as the Roman Empire, this whole dark system of money and banking and checks, and all of this stuff goes back thousands of years, and people thousands of years didn't understand it. The people today in America don't understand it. There's only a handful of people on the earth who really know how this whole monetary system really works.
Well, Jordan, isn't it sort of similar to, let's say, a few thousand years ago, the average person, or most people, were illiterate and they couldn't read, they couldn't write, and that's
right.
Very similar to what we have today, where most people, we can write and we can speak, or at least we think we can. We think we understand it, but in a way, from what you're explaining, we're no more literate than we were 1,000 years ago.
That's exactly right. We're equally as ill-informed, unread, and ignorant as we were 2,000 years ago. We still don't get any of it. We don't know where anything comes from. We don't question anything. We don't know anything. It's just amazing how adults today have no idea. People going to college and come out and they're going to graduate, not realizing the word graduate comes from two words: to gradually indoctrinate. Gradually indoctrinate, and then when you're through, you graduate. And it's a 12-step program. Alcoholics have a 12-step program. So does the sun have a 12-step program. It starts in the morning. It walks through the sky at 12 steps. So it's a 12-step program. Jesus had 12 apostles, right? Why? Well, for the same reason you have 12 jurors in a jury system. They're going to help bring the truth to light with the light of truth. All of this is just toying with the real story. The real story is the profound, dark, evil world that has been foisted on us at birth. We come into this world not understanding anything, and we go out understanding even less. And very few people have ever stopped to wonder, where did this or that come from? I mean, you go to the post office today, and you say you're going to the post office, but in America there is no such a thing as a post office. Incidentally, it used to be called the Pony Express hundreds of years ago, when they run for 10 or 15 miles on a horse as fast as he could, ride into this little town and tie the horse up at in front of the bar at a post, and get on a new horse and run. It was called the Pony Express. Well, when they ride into town, they tie their horse up at the post, and so it became known as the post office. No, it's just a post where you tie the horse up. So today, people say they're going to the post office. There is no post office in America. America has no post office. There is a United States Postal Service, but not the post office. Long time ago, about 50 years ago, the post office was done away with in America. There is no post office anymore. There's a United States Postal Service, and back in 1970, I think it was, where the post office was done away with in America, and no longer, there is no post office. And so the United States Postal Service is now it was founded by the military. So when you go into any post office, or what you call a post office, it's actually a military building. You're under military law when you walk in there. You just don't know it. And that's why if you were drafted, or if you want to join the military, you can go into a post office, and they will they will swear you in. You can swear before a person in the post office, and why? Because the post office is run by the military. So it's a military installation. The post office is gone. Back in 1970, it's gone. So all of your, anything you're sending through the postal service today, that's all military. So if you're sending anything the military doesn't want, you're going to have a knock on the door by some very powerful people from the U.S. military. And so,
Jordan,
it's just amazing how much people don't know and how this world works.
Is there any relationship to what you're saying about how we don't really understand words and where they come from and what they actually mean, and this parallel in the last few years of this politically correct fervor where you're not supposed to say mom or dad, that's offensive, boy and girl is offensive, brown bags are offensive. It's another way to control language. What do you think about that?
That's Nazism, communism, Marxist. It's called cultural Marxism. Look it up in a dictionary. The word is cultural Marxism. It's a Marxist communist, Soviet communist system where you no longer have man and woman. That's interesting because, on your identification, on your driver's license and all your ID, it will say male or female. If you look on something called the Styles magazine, Styles book or Styles magazine, that's published by the United States government printing office, and the British printing office has the British Styles book. And what that Styles book is the words which are used in government, what they actually in fact mean, not what you think they mean or what it sounds like it means. No, what they actually mean in law. It's called the Styles magazine or Styles book. And you look up the word male and female, and it will tell you in the Styles magazine, the government printing office will tell you that male and female is a term for animals. Pigs, animals, dogs are male and female. But a man or a woman, well, first of all, you are not considered a man or a woman, because man or woman, when you were born, are feminine and masculine. You either have a masculine child or a feminine child. That means that they are a woman or a man, not male or female. And so male and female is for an animal. And that's why you hear people talking about race, racism, and this is a racist, and that's a racist. They haven't got the faintest idea in the world. They can't read, so they can't go to a dictionary and read. But if you go to a law dictionary and look up the word race, R-A-C-E, you will see. And point of fact, race does not mean what you thought it meant. Race means animals, a particular kinds of animals. That's a whole story in itself, you know. When my God, we could go into that one for hours about the different kinds of animals you have on the earth, and they're all of a different race. So race means an animal stock. A stock of animals is a race. That's why we have a human race. That's why, you know, people are talking about how they're being treated like dogs. No, no, you are a dog. That's why they're treating you like an animal, because you are an animal. You're not masculine or feminine. You're a male and female. Look on your ID. And you know, if you got a Social Security, you look on the back of your Social Security card, you will see a series of numbers on the bottom. They're usually at either black, blue, or red. That's why they're going to beat you black and blue. And if they're on mine, it's in red, because it used to be many years ago, all the numbers on the back of a Social Security card are red. And why? Well, because the numbers on the back of a Social Security card represent your blood on the New York Stock Exchange. You are a human resource on the stock exchange, and so that's your blood number. And that's why it's in red.
So it's a blood number and asset number.
That's right. Well, you are a human resource. You're not a man or a woman. You're a male and female. You're a human resource. And so they can use you. If they can't use you, well, then they'll fire you and throw you away. So you're just a human resource. You're not a man or a woman. And so, again, this all goes back to the way our system of government is, our system of religion, how we view law. I mean, at the very founding of America back in 1770s, the big question among the founding fathers of this republic, the big question was Rex or Lex. Is it Rex Lex or Lex Rex? Lex is a Latin word for law, L-E-X, law, or Rex, R-E-X, which is king. King is R-E-X, law is L-E-X. So the question of the founding fathers was, is the law going to be king here in America, or is the king going to be the law? Is the king our law, or is our law our king? So is it Rex Lex or Lex Rex? And so it started out with Lex Rex. Our law was the king in America. Now, of course, after 1871, the king is now our law. So now it's Rex Lex. I don't know. It's you know, I'm just amazed, and I say that all the time because I truly am amazed at how much people just don't know about how the world works. I mean, I hear all these people, lots of people talking about Obama should not be president because he was not born here. I understand what their concern is, but it's ludicrous on the face of it. He doesn't have to be born here. There's no, and that's why when he says, "I don't need to be born here," that's why he can falsify his birth certificate, because he really, by law, does not need to be born in America.
Well, Jordan, wouldn't that be the same with our perception of God-given or human innate rights as well?
Well, you got that right. That's exactly right. And the reason why Obama does not need to be born here, he's right when he says that. And it's because we started off as a republic back in 1770s. We started off as a republic. And of course, in the republic, you had to be born here to be a president in the republic. But after the Civil War, there was a civil war here in America where the South went to war against the North. The North went to war against the South. And thousands of men died bloody deaths in that Civil War. It was very, very bloody. Even the historians talk about it was the most cruel, bloodiest war, one of the worst in history, and that was here in America. Well, after that bloody, murderous war, our Civil War, after that was over, we here were anything but united. So we're not United States anymore. The, the North hates the South, and the South hates the North, and the powers that be ended the war, but we're not united anymore. We're not ever going to be united anymore. There ain't no United States. Well, we're all here. We all have to live, so they came up with a new idea. All right, we want to continue to think of ourselves as the United States, but we're not united. We just killed each other for hundreds of thousands of bloodshed. So we just killed a lot of people. So we're not united anymore. But what we have to do is got to make do. We got to do something because everybody is still here and they want to eat. And so they decided to, in 1871, to create, after the Civil War was over, they created a company, a corporation. And they called the corporation the United States Corporation. It was a corporation founded in Delaware. It was a Delaware corporation. Well, hell, anybody can create a corporation. You can too. But when you form a corporation, you get certain perks and certain things you can do now, but you have to live by corporate law, international corporate law. And so you can't do certain things that other people can do because you're a corporation. And so that's why today all U.S. citizens are a corporation. And
And that's why Obama is the CEO, so he doesn't need to be born in the United States.
so no, you don't have to be born in the United States to be the head of a corporation. I got Japanese friends who are heads of their corporation right here in Los Angeles, but they're not born here. They don't need to be. They didn't say they weren't the president of the United States of America. No, they're just Japanese who happen to be the president of their corporation. Well, hell, anybody can be black from Africa could be head of their corporation here in Los Angeles. As long as you pay your taxes, they don't care.
Yeah, unless
you don't have to be born here to be the head of a company.
Unless we understand that about 1871 and the establishment of the corporation, I think it really makes everything beyond that irrelevant.
Oh,
and
God, yes.
Every discussion, argument, and debate is irrelevant.
No, everything is totally irrelevant. If you don't understand, we're not the United States of America. It was a company. It was formed as a corporation called the United States Corporation. And it was stipulated in that corporation papers in Delaware that if you are working for this corporation, that you are an employee of a foreign corporation, because the corporation is not connected to the United States of America at all. It's a foreign corporation. And it's called the United States Corporation. And this is why if you come across the borders as a corporation, if you come across the borders illegally, we don't care if you're illegally across the border. We don't care about that. The corporation doesn't care. What we care about is that you're an undocumented worker. That's what they're concerned about. As long as you get documented, you can come in here all you want. As long as you get documented, there's a reason for that. Because if you don't get documented, that means you're coming into the corporation. You are slipping in late at night into Sears and working there and making money, but you're not officially an employee. Therefore, when the corporation finds out that you are working there and they didn't hire you, you just came in and started working and they thought you were an employee, and then they find out you're not an employee, then the corporation can put what they call a lien. It's called a mechanic's lien. They can put a lien on you, and therefore you are now known as an alien. No, they put a lien on you. Therefore, you're an alien, and so you are now under a lien. It's a fascinating subject when you understand the words. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about in commerce and liens. Suppose you are a painting contractor, and I call you to paint my office, and you come and give me an estimate of $100 to paint my office. When you are through with the job, the way it works is that you give me then a bill, and the bill tells me what you did, how much it cost, and everything, and how much I owe you. Okay, so when the job is done, you give me a bill for $100, uh, and you expect to be paid. All right, so I reach in my wallet and I pull out $100 bill and give it to you. So you've been paid. No, you haven't been paid. You gave me a bill for $100. I gave you $100 bill. If you had given me a bill for $20, I give you a $20 bill. Get it? If you had given me a bill for $10, I give you a $10 bill, because the money in my pocket is a bill. It's a banknote, and you now owe me $100. So since I owe you $100, and I gave you $100 bill, now you owe me $100. I didn't pay you anything. I neutralized the debt. That's why today in America you cannot pay a bill. You can discharge a debt, but you cannot pay a bill. So that's why when you walk across the carpet and you touch something metal, you get a discharge. That's why when you're in the military, they're going to discharge you. It all has to do with your body as a corporation, and you are pledging your allegiance. You pledge your allege, which is a term used in Rome when you pledge your body as a biological battery, and you're pledging your energy and your biological battery, called your body, to the corporation. You're pledging your allege.
Well, Jordan, we're going to go ahead and take a break here in just a moment. Yeah. I'm going to let Brad off the line, but he has one last question or comment for you, I believe. Go ahead, Brad.
Well, you may have to pick this up after the break, Jordan, but originally when you started talking about commerce, you're using all the examples of water. Maybe you can go into admiralty law and maritime law and how people's perception of what our legal system's all about is completely wrong, or they're just ignorant of what it really is. So I'm hoping you could talk about that when we come back.
Yes, let's go ahead and go to break. Brad, if you want a variety of subjects, everything from commerce to an understanding of the alien UFO presence and theology. We didn't get too much into that, but before we went to break, we had a question from a call-in, Brad Olson, asking about admiralty law. Jordan, if you could maybe address Brad's question.
Well, first of all, let me say I got off on I started on one subject and got off on it before I finished it. I was going to tell you about the fact that there's different websites out there with my name on it. People use my name to bring business to their website illegally. They are legally using my name and my picture and posing themselves as representing Jordan Maxwell. Nobody represents Jordan Maxwell but me. And my website is jordanmaxwellshow.com, not jordanmaxwell.com. That is not my website. So I have nothing to do with it. Jordan Maxwell Show. And when you go on my show, Jordan Maxwell Show, which is a podcast, a free podcast, as I said, I was advised by lawyers to the kind of material I deal with should be kept private, not given to the public as such. And so that's why I developed a second website, which is called the Research Society website. And so if you go on my website, jordanmaxwellshow.com, you will see a button that says to join the Research Society website. All it is just a new website that I'm going to upload all of my research, all the documents, all of the articles, pictures, audio, video, documentation, all kinds of research materials that I would prefer not putting out into the public. So if you want to get in on the really good stuff that I've been talking about for years, and it's a huge website, and it's going to be even bigger because we're putting new stuff on almost every day. It's called Jordan Maxwell Research Society website. So just go on my Jordan Maxwell show and you'll see it. You can join if you like, because that's where all the good stuff is going to be in private on my Jordan Maxwell Research Society.
I'd like to endorse
thank
that,
you.
Jordan. I signed up for that, and there's just a wealth of information on that website, and I thought it was very a very good value. It's only $30 for a lifetime membership. So I encourage people to go to your jordanmaxwellshow.com website and click on the Research Society button and join that, because that's where you have all the good stuff, right, Jordan?
That's right. That's right. That's all the good stuff is there. I'm keeping it private. And so if somebody takes something off of there and puts it into the public, I can say I didn't do it, somebody else did it. But so at least I'm protecting myself, because I got a lot of stuff on there and I got more coming, which is not only controversial but could be dangerous if you know some of that information. So I'm trying to keep it private. And so, like you said, a lot of people are charging like $200 and $300 or more a year for some news letters, etc. I'm only charging $30 one time for a one-time lifetime subscription to everything I'm doing, all of it. I'm putting it all on there, and that's only going to my webmaster and the company who's keeping my web going, not me, because it costs money to have a website, and webmasters who are very good at what they do and right on target, and 24/7 watching to make sure everything is working right. So that's what I'm charging for. I've been putting it out for free, but I don't have the money to pay the webmasters anymore. So it's only $30 for a lifetime subscription, and it's all kinds of stuff that you will never see anywhere else. I'm putting a lot of material on about religion, government, commerce, audio, videos, free ebooks, documents of all kinds on all kinds of subjects. So I just wanted I want your audience to know that there's a very big difference between Jordan Maxwell's show, which is my website, and other websites that have my name on it. If it's not Jordan Maxwell's show, it's not me. Somebody is using my name. And I'm going to have a lawyer one day go through and try and pull these sites down that are using my name and my face and my work to bring business to themselves. That's illegal, and I'm tired of people doing it, but I've never been able to do anything about it. So now I'm finally getting a chance to do something about these people who are robbing me of my name and my work. So
And
that's
I would
it.
encourage all the listeners too, if you have the financial wherewithal to do so, to make a donation to Jordan and to Ryan, because they're both doing God's work, and they're both very good, obviously, at what they do. And if you can muster up a few dollars to donate to either one of their causes, I know that you both would appreciate it greatly.
Yes, very much so.
Thank you, Jack.
Because I pretty much live on donations. I don't have any big company. I don't have a big corporation. I don't own anything. I live in somebody else's home. I don't have a home of myself. I've been homeless since 1989, so I live with friends and do the best I can and just continue to work, put materials out. So I'm not doing it for money. If I were, I would have been. And besides, I'm now involved in a court case where people have actually stole my website, stole my money, stole everything from me, and left me for dead. So I had to start a new website, Jordan Maxwell Show.
And we have the
So
we have the
that's
proper
where
one.
it all is.
Proper one is linked up on our website as well, Jordan Maxwell Show.
Good, and thank you. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yep, absolutely. Brad's question was about admiralty law, and
Yeah.
before you answer that, Jordan, I just want to make sure, how much longer do you think you can stay with us tonight? You're welcome to stay for the next hour and 13 minutes, which is the remainder of the show, or a half hour, whatever works for you.
I don't feel like staying on a whole much longer. Let's go to 11 now. See what I feel like.
Okay.
Because I'm almost 76 years old and I'm tired. But these subjects are so important. I really want people to understand how much they don't know, and start awakening to the fact that you need to do research. And I get so many people emailing me and saying, "Well, where do you start? Where in the world can I start?" Well, I started 55 years ago, and I can tell you where to start. Just go on my website. That's a good place to start. On my research website, I've got links to all the people I think are important in the world, where they are, who they are, what they're doing, how to contact them, and hear them on YouTube or whatever. I try and make all the good people that I know and all the researchers and writers that I know that are very, very important, I try to make them all available to the world so everybody will know where to start doing research. Just go on my website. That's a good place to start. So when you talk about admiralty law, we talked a little bit about it. That's why you got an admiral in the Navy, because of the word admiralty is a law. Where that came from is back in the Roman Empire. It was understood that there were only two things on the earth: dirt and water, land and sea. That's it. That's what the earth is, either land or sea. So the Romans divided their laws up between the law of the land and the law of the sea. And so today we use that term, the law of the land, never realizing the reason why you use that term, law of the land, because it's in opposition to something that's called the law of the sea. The law of the sea is called admiralty. So the law of the land is the law of the people who live on a particular piece of land. So the law of the land in China is different than the law of the land in South Africa, because the law of the land is the people who live on that land have their own customs, their own way of living. So it's called the law of the land. That's why if you're in Rome, do as the Romans do. So if you're going to go to Europe, learn how to speak their language or live their lifestyle if you're going to fit in. So there's a law of the land, which is the law of the people who live on the land. But then there's a law of the sea, which is called maritime admiralty law. That's why you have admirals in the Navy. And why do you have a Navy? Because the body of a church, when you walk in, the church's body is called a nave, N-A-V-E. This is why you have a Navy, because it has to do with the admiralty. It has to do with the Holy See, where the Pope sits in the holy chair of St. Peter. The chair is called the Holy See, where he sits upon many waters, like the Bible says in Revelation. And so the Pope is the head of maritime admiralty, the Holy See, and this is where the England and America get their commercial laws from the Vatican. The Vatican is the ultimate power behind England and America. It also is the ultimate power behind maritime admiralty. International maritime banking laws are all based on Vatican canon law. And this is why priests wear black robes, just as judges wear black robes, and rabbis wear black robes, and Darth Vader and and Dracula, and God knows all the other
graduation outfits.
Yeah, it's the black robe represents something. People, when you graduate, you see kids coming out of college and university, never realizing what the word college, where it came from. So you go into college, and you have no idea in the world where the word college came from and what it means. And it should tell you something, because in college, when you graduate, when you've been gradually indoctrinated, you graduate, you have a square mortarboard with a tassel on it. And the square mortarboard are usually black, and of course you wear black robes when you graduate. The black square symbolizes the planet Saturn. That's another whole subject. Saturn is the god of the Hebrews. It's the god of law, the god of retribution. And so it's the Jewish god of law, Saturn. And Saturn is referred to as the Lord of the Rings. That's why the Jews in Hollywood are still making movies about their god, Lord of the Rings. Well, Saturn, the planet Saturn, is Lord of the Rings, and the symbol for Saturn and the astrological symbols of Saturn, uh, the astronomical symbols, and the occult world of Hebrew occultism is a black square. This is why you wear the black square on the mortarboard.
And that's very similar to the Kaaba at Mecca.
That's exactly correct.
Or the
Kaaba is a black square. It's a Masonic, it's a Jewish symbol.
And the Tefillin worn by the Jews.
Exactly, precisely. That's another black square. All of that is connected.
And it's also connected to the Borg.
Yep.
To the Borg in Star Trek.
Yes.
Yep. That's exactly right. So all of these things people look at, watching on television, watching in their movies, and watching Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, never for a moment realizing this is Jewish mysticism. It has to do with Jewish occultism, mysticism coming out of Hollywood. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again because it deals with the subject we're talking about. In Europe, way before the Roman Empire even existed, in Europe there was already an established order of things in Europe before the Roman Empire. And that established order is still there today. And it was called the Druid system. And the Druids were the powers of Europe even before the Roman Empire. They were in north, east, west, and south of Europe was under Druid domination. And one of the most important symbols, the Druids were the judges, the doctors, the lawyers, politicians, the mayors, all the important people in a Druid community, in the white man's community in Europe were called Druids.
Don't we get the Hollywood from the Hollywood?
Well, that's what I was about to say.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, and so one of the most important symbols in the Druid system was a magic wand, like the orchestra leaders today. You see orchestra leaders leading the music. You play to their tune, not yours. You play to their orchestra. They're orchestrating the tune. So they are waving their magic wand, like Merlin the magician. And so magic wands were always made out of the wood of a holly tree. It's made out of holly wood. And this is why today we have Hollywood with this magic working its magic on us. Yes, well, Jewish Hollywood has been working its magic on the American people and on the world for about 100 years now. And it's an extraordinary story of betrayal and manipulation and propaganda. That's why every time you see a Democratic president come in, there will always be movies in Hollywood about the Nazis, anti-Nazi films. And then when the Republicans get in, you will go back and see when the Republicans were a Republican president, there were anti-communist films. And the reason why is because the Republicans, were the Republican Party as far back as 1945, 46, and 47 was being taken over by Operation Paperclip by the Nazis that were coming into America, and they were joining the Republican Party. So that today the Republican Party, with the exception of a handful of good people in the Republican Party, but generally speaking, the Republican Party in America is a Nazi outfit. Nazi, as in NASA, N-A-S-A, NASA. Nazi. It's a Nazi operation. It's called the Republican Party, but actually it's filled with Nazis. And there's a few good people in the Republican Party who are good Americans, but the whole system is a Nazi movement, as opposed to the Democratic Party, which is a communist system, a Marxist-Leninist Soviet communist system. So in America today, you're either being ruled by Marxist-Leninist communists, like the old Soviet Union, or under Hitler and under the Nazi movement.
So
Republican Nazi, and incidentally, they call that that's a two-party system, and we call it left and right, left wing and right wing. Why? Why is it called left wing and right wing? Because the American eagle only has two wings. It's got two wings, left wing and right wing. And on the bottom of the dollar bill, on the back of the dollar bill, you will see the eagle has 9 tail feathers. That's very important. Count them in the 9 tail feathers, because that represents the Council of Nine, which is something referred to as the Illuminati back in Europe. It's called the Council of Nine. Well, or when you get into that Council of Nine, that's a whole story in itself, because we're told that the Knights Templars, there were 9 Templars, there were 9 knights, in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. With Indiana Jones, that was a whole story about the Knights Templars. And there were 9 of them, and they were supposedly the 9 knights that started what we call the Temple of Solomon, the Masonic Order of Temple Knights Templars, and there were 9 of them. And the 9 Templars were to be on the road between Europe and the Middle East to protect the pilgrims who wanted to go to the Middle East, the 9 knights. Well, 9 people are not going to protect anybody. That's a lot of space to protect with 9 guys. So it's just a ruse. It's just a symbol. It's just a story. It has nothing to do with reality at all. No, the 9 knights that found the Knights Templars is actually the Council of Nine. Go look it up in a dictionary, Council of Nine, and you will see that's why the eagle has 9 feathers. All I'm saying is that all the stuff on our money and in our churches, in our synagogues, in the mosque, all of the different religious symbols, all of our symbols in banks and universities and colleges and police departments and sheriff's department, and all the symbols and emblems. Everybody wears uniforms. The cops have uniforms. The firemen have uniforms. The children going to parochial schools have uniforms. You're going to work in a restaurant, you have to have a uniform. Why? Because it's all on the Uniform Commercial Code. Uniformity. That's why they want uniformity. Everybody's got to be in compliance with the business. It's all money and business and control of the human resource. So all of this stuff is hidden from the American people. It's hidden from the world. And I've been trying for some 55 years to wake people up to the fact that nothing in this world works the way you think it does. Nothing.
Jordan, I have a couple questions from listeners. I don't know how much time we have. Maybe if you could just answer these briefly. There's a question from Brandon in Alaska. He just asks about the word love being altered from its original form.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole story too, because love in the Greek, I think there's at least 4 different kinds of love in the Greek. Incidentally, that question reminds me that in the Bible, Christians will tell you that God is love. God is love. Well, in point of fact, that's not what it says at all. It doesn't say that. Go back to the text and it will tell you, it says God is Jove, Jove, not Love, Jove. God is Jove. Why? Because Jupiter. That's a whole story, where the gods of Christianity and Judaism have come from. They're the gods of the stars. It's Jupiter. And Pater. Pater was a father in Jew. Pater was the father of the Jews. We call him Jupater or Jupiter. And my God, when we get into religion and theology, there's a big story there. I mean, we could go on for hours about religion.
We'd be here all night.
All night on that subject, boy. I mean,
I wanted to comment also, you mentioned the eagle. It's very similar to the German eagle, the phoenix, the Bennu bird. Even the obelisk we talked about earlier, this phallic symbol, this frozen ray of sunlight, male creative force. You see this in Washington, D.C.
That's exactly right.
You see this in the Vatican, St. Peter's Basilica. You see it in London, all over the world, major financial, military, and political centers. It's all over the place. It's all around us.
Everywhere. That's why the Bible says the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one. Mm-hmm. Not the whole world except America. No, the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one. Meaning, quite simply, the entire earth is covered with demonic depravity, lies, deceptions, symbols, secrets, and being run from behind the scenes by people you have no idea who they are and how this system started, who's running it now, and where it's going to go.
Jordan,
So,
I have two quick questions for you. Then I'll pass it to Jack for his final thoughts, and I'll allow you to wrap up. I know you have to go here, because we could talk all night. The first question, if you could just briefly touch on it, it's my one question I wanted to ask you. One of the things I focus on is also theology and symbolism and the occult and rituals. And when I watch something like a Super Bowl or the Olympics that are coming up, or when I see these so-called mass shootings, the numerology associated with them, the symbols, the names.
oh yeah,
Is this a big ritual?
Oh yes, that's what it is. Yeah, there's a whole story about that. The lady you're going to have on, you're going to have on this lady who is she's absolutely sensational. Her name is Tracy, Tracy, Tracy Twyman, Twyman, Tracy Twyman. Tracy is extraordinary. She's really fascinating to listen to about rituals or ritual killings and the dates and why certain things happen on certain dates and why it happened in France and what it means or what these words and terms mean, why they're called ICES. It's a hell of a story about the hidden symbolism of secret societies and occult orders that are operating in the world today. We know that there's secret societies. We know about the mafia. We know about the organized crime and the Chinese Tong societies and the Japanese Yakuza and all these major criminal elements in all the different countries of the world. But nobody seems to realize that there's something even bigger, far, far bigger, some sort of an overwhelming, all-encompassing criminal empire that's been around for tens of thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
And you begin to see the symbols and emblems of these criminal empires and governments, churches, religions.
Well, it's just like the wealthy when you see these Forbes 50 wealthiest men and women in the world, but you never see the Rothschilds or Rockefellers, any of these big families mentioned.
That's right. Yeah, it's quite a story about how much we don't know, how much we've never been told. And again, I just do what I do because that's who I am and that's what I do. And I'm the only, I hear people telling me, well, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And I say, yeah, it's a train coming, airhead. And
that was actually my final question for you, and then I'll pass it to Jack for his final thoughts. What do you see changing? What do you see happening in the next few years? Where are we headed? If you can give us any idea of your thoughts.
Yeah, well, I don't think you want to hear them.
Well, I might. Some people might not want to, but I'd like to hear what you think.
Well, I think where we're heading, people like to tell me, well, I hear this all the time. Well, people are waking up, People are starting to wake up. To my answer to that is yes, that's what prisoners do in a federal penitentiary. Every morning they wake up. And so, yeah, the people are waking up. They're still in prison, and they're not going anywhere. But at least they're waking up to the fact that they're not going anywhere and they're in prison. So what does that mean? They're going to change anything? No, they're not going to change nothing. They can't change anything. You can't change anything. Americans cannot change a thing. You can elect your leaders, but you cannot select your leaders. You can only elect, not select. So Americans are not able to change anything. Why? Because change, you don't have the power to change anything. You've got to have power to change things, and Americans don't have any power to change nothing. Why? Simple. Knowledge is power. If you don't know what's going on, then you have no knowledge. And without knowledge, there is no power. Knowledge itself is power. So once you understand how the world works, once you finally get it, and you finally see how this world really works, and how this thing has actually been put together thousands of years ago, and understand the words and the institutions and all the symbols and government, and commerce and religion, and begin to see why churches are divided into denominations like 50s and hundreds, and that's the way they divide money, as into denominations. So churches are nothing more than money corporations to make money, period. It's got anything to do with God or the Lord, or it's money. Denominations.
It's a collection of money, collection
A
plates.
collection of money, period. And so, until and unless people wake up and start educating themselves, they will begin to see the horrible things coming, but there's nothing they can do about it. Why? Because they don't understand how it works. So, I mean, you can have a beautiful new car, but if you don't know how it works and it breaks down in the desert, you're probably going to die, because if you don't know how it works, you don't know what to fix, you don't know what the problem is. All you know is it don't work. Well, your government don't work, but you don't know why, and you don't know how it don't work. You just know it's not working the way you thought it was. So that's what that's what I do. I try and educate people the best I can at 76 years old.
Well, Jordan, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go on. What were you saying?
I was just going to pass it along to Jack, pass the baton to Jack
Yep.
real fast. Jack, do you have any final comments or questions for Jordan?
Oh, I have a list a mile long.
Believe me, I do too.
Man, Jordan, unbelievable the amount of information that you're just a stream of information. But we were talking earlier before the broadcast, and earlier in this broadcast, you had mentioned that there generally are dark ETs that are here. Obviously, I would have to conclude that this whole system was created and orchestrated by some other force, some darker entity, some ET. And then when we were talking before, you said pretty much that your thoughts were the only way that this world is going to change is if some form of benevolent ETs intervene.
Yep. And the reason why I say that is because mankind, as far back as I can go in history, which is about 10,000 years of, history of the earth goes back billions of years. We know that there were high civilizations on this earth billions of years ago. We know that. Billions with a B. There were highly intelligent races on this earth billions of years ago. We have artifacts that are found way down in the earth in strata, which is 3.5 to 4 billion years old, handmade artifacts. So we know somebody was on this earth 4 billion years ago. But nobody's talking about that. We're not supposed to know anything about it because it's not important. It has nothing to do with Paris Hilton or a football game, so we don't talk about it. But myself, I think that's pretty damn exciting to find out that there were civilizations on this earth billions of years ago, not millions. And that's a whole story of getting into who are we and where did we come from. But the point is that I don't even know what the point is. I'm getting off of this.
Well, we were talking about ETs, positive ETs potentially coming to bail humanity out.
Yeah. So what I was saying is that unless there is somebody out there in the heavens who are watching us, unless there is somebody out there who is watching us and will step in and intervene in our natural evolution and then intervene in our business, we are doomed, because the human race has never, in 10,000 years of history I know of, the human race has never, and is not now, and never will, rise up to protect itself, because the human race cannot protect itself. It cannot protect itself from the predators, just as the hundreds of zebras and water buffalo out on the Serengeti plains of Africa cannot protect themselves from the 6 lions. All they can do is run. When the lions show up, they run, because they cannot protect themselves. Yeah, they got horns and they're big and they can do something, but they don't. They just run. And so that's the way the human race is. And it is, If there's any kind of any kind of predators out there, the human race can't do anything about it. We just go along to get along because we don't know what's going on. Nobody's ever told us anything. So, knowledge is power, and we don't have any knowledge. That's why we have no power. So that's what I'm trying to do, is empower people with knowledge.
That's the theme of this show, Jordan, empowering and taking responsibility, trying to provide people with knowledge, with information so that they can empower themselves, defend themselves, take responsibility. Jordan, thank you so much. As I said a couple of times, you were a big inspiration for me growing up as a kid, and sort of, most people know I'm only 25 years old, and I really, that old saying that's very desensitized, we're desensitized to it now, of waking up. I woke up, opened my eyes in that prison about 17 years old. And since then, I've learned, obviously, a great deal, and I've suffered a form of mystery school death in society where it's difficult to even function.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've experienced this, too.
Yep. Yeah, we all do. We all do.
Well,
but that's it's the price you pay for wanting to know. That's why ignorance is bliss. It's much better for you. Just drink your beer and watch a ball game. Don't worry about it, because
that's right. Not
just
that
play stupid, play dumb. You'll be okay.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's everything in moderation. Jordan Maxwell, our guest this evening. The website, jordanmaxwellshow.com. That's jordanmaxwellshow.com. His research website, Jack already signed up. I'm going to be signing up after the show. $30 lifetime membership to Jordan's research, jordanmaxwellresearch.is. You can also find those links if you're on our website, www.thesecretteachings.info. And if you're there, $10 for a monthly subscription to The Secret Teachings. The show airs live every Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday, 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Mountain, and 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Secret Teachings. And my email, rdgable@yahoo.com, to contact me directly. Jordan, any last words? You can have the floor for a minute or two, whatever you need. Thank you so much for joining us on the program this evening.
Well, thank you for having me. All I would say is to stay away from jordanmaxwell.com. That doesn't belong to me. It was taken from me, stolen from me. And there are other websites out there, Jordan Maxwell Institute, Jordan Maxwell this, and Jordan Maxwell that. None of it is me. It's people using my name to bring attention to themselves and to their website. So if you want to deal with me, it's Jordan Maxwell Show. Anything else out there is not mine, so I have nothing to do with it. Again, thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Jordan.
Hopefully, Jordan, if I could just, thank you very much, Jordan. And I just want to let you know that you are well loved. I love you, and there are many, many others that love you as well. Thank you so much for what you do.
I appreciate it, and thank you.
Hopefully you'll come back on the show sometime, Jordan. You have a good night. Stay safe.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.